Hello and welcome to American Catholic History. If you like our podcast, be sure to rate us and give us a review wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Newel Crow.
And I'm Tom Crow.
Today, we're talking about the Miraculous Loretto staircase. This story always gets a lot of attention when it pops up on social media. The more dramatic versions of the story tell us that St. Joseph himself showed up and built the staircase with wood he miraculously brought from hundreds, if not thousands of miles away.
Yeah, but the more mundane version holds that a skilled French carpenter who had dedicated his life to doing things like this heard of the sisters' plight and showed up at the right place at the right time with the right materials.
Well, however it really happened, it's a rather intriguing story of faith, unexplainable coincidences, and the nature of divine intervention.
Right, because the coincidences really, they stretch the possibilities of mere chance.
Yeah, and this is also a story that we can tell from firsthand experience. We've both been to the chapel where the staircase stands, and we've seen it. I've only been there once when we led a pilgrimage to Santa Fe together, but, well, you've been there 3 times.
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I visited once back in college when I was out in New Mexico on a spring break mission work trip, and then I've actually been involved in 2 pilgrimages to Santa Fe. The second of them was the one when you came. But no matter how many times I've seen it, it still is just an awe-inspiring sight to behold.
It sure is. So let's talk about where and why and how this miraculous staircase came into being.
Right. So we start back in 1850. The first bishop of New Mexico, the Frenchman Jean-Baptiste Lamy, wanted a school for girls in his new diocese. He had previously been a missionary in Ohio and so was familiar with the Sisters of Loretto, whose home base is in Kentucky.
Another place we visited on pilgrimage. And we will go back again. And hopefully again after that.
Yeah.
It's a great pilgrimage to the Kentucky Holy Land. Everyone should join us when we go later this year.
In June. Yeah.
Or some other year.
Yeah, check it out. On our pilgrimages page.
We're happy to go every year to Kentucky,
Absolutely. We only need 11 people. So Bishop Lamy invited the Sisters of Loretto to come to Santa Fe to establish a school for girls. The sisters responded and sent 6. It was a rough journey, and the Mother Superior actually died along the way. But the other 5 made it in 1853 and opened their school. Now, they didn't have a lot of money to start out, so as they built the school, one building that they put off until later was a proper chapel. The time for the chapel came 20 years later, in the 1870s, after they had raised the capital.
Another reason the time was right was because there were 2 excellent architects in town. Bishop Lamy finally had raised the money to build a proper cathedral, and being irrepressibly French, he wanted a cathedral that reminded him of home. So he hired Antoine Molly and his son Projectus, who came over from France to do the work. Antoine was in charge of the cathedral, so Projectus took on the work at the Sisters' Chapel.
And if you ever go to Santa Fe, you can't miss their work. St. Francis that's the cathedral, is right around the corner from the main square. It is built in a Romanesque revival style, and it is beautiful. But it also is a bit out of place amid the adobe and territorial architecture all around.
And the same is certainly true of the Gothic Revival chapel that they built for the sisters.
Oh, yeah. Projectus Molly, the son, took on that project of designing the sisters' chapel. It includes buttresses and spires, tall pointed arches, stone vaulting, and stained glass windows imported from France. It is very Gothic. The design also included a choir loft above the doorway that sits a full 20 feet above the floor of the nave.
This chapel, dedicated as Our Lady of Light, was actually patterned after Sainte-Chapelle in Paris, which was Bishop Lamy's favorite church. And if you've ever been to Sainte-Chapelle, you can understand why it would be his favorite. It is literally breathtakingly beautiful.
Yes, it is.
As in, it took my breath away when we walked into it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. Our Lady of Light was substantially completed and was consecrated in 1878. But one thing was conspicuously lacking: a stairway to the choir loft.
Kind of an important detail that was left out there.
Right. And there was another complication. That architect, Projectus Molly, died in 1879 without leaving plans for any staircase.
And that's pretty inconvenient.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Other builders were brought in, but they all suggested a conventional staircase. The sisters were not open to this because of how much floor space it would take up. They had a full school and needed all the seating. so they were in a bit of a jam. And what do good sisters do when they're in a jam of this sort?
Well, they pray a novena to St. Joseph, the patron saint of carpenters, of course.
Of course. And, some priest friends of mine, when they ask religious women to pray a novena for a very specific intention, they refer to it as calling in an airstrike. They say the prayers never fail and are frequently answered in spectacular, if unexpected, ways.
Well, the eventual answer here certainly seems to fit that bill. Spectacular and completely unexpected.
And how? So the sisters prayed a novena to St. Joseph, and you'll never guess what happened next.
On the ninth day of the novena, a carpenter showed up at their door.
Of course. Yeah.
They'd never seen him before. He had with him a cartload of wood, some very basic hand tools, and an offer that they couldn't refuse. He would build them a staircase that would not interfere with their seating. All he asked in return was that he be left alone to work. The sisters agreed naturally, and he went to work.
The only time the sisters went into the chapel for the next few months was for their prayer. During that time, he would leave. All the sisters ever saw him doing was soaking wood in large vats of water. And the staircase rose, tread by tread, from the nave to the choir loft above. Months later, the project was completed. The carpenter cleaned up his tools, and he vanished as quietly and suddenly as he had arrived. He did not even show up for the banquet the sisters had prepared to thank him.
He was gone.
He was gone. The sisters tried to track him down, but he left no identifying documents at all. No bill, no vendor, no lumberyard or general store had any records of him making any purchases. Nothing. Everything he used he had brought with him, and then he disappeared.
Very mysterious.
Yeah.
You'd think it was an angel, or maybe even St. Joseph himself?
You might think so, right? But let's leave that for the moment and talk about what he left behind.
Yes, the staircase, and it's amazing.
It is a spiral staircase, and it makes 2 complete 360-degree turns as it rises that 20 feet.
Now, spiral staircases were nothing new at the time, but this one has an unusual feature. It has no central supporting column. It is supported entirely by the wooden stringers, those pieces of wood that connect the stairs and that the treads sit on. Those stringers were bent round and stretched into helixes.
Now, to accomplish the helix shape is no small feat. I've done a bit of fine woodworking. My dad started a cabinet and carpentry business the year I was born, so I grew up around woodworking. To make the helix, the pieces of wood had to be bent in 2 directions. It has to be more or less like rolled like a carpet, and then you take the end that's at the center of the roll and pull it straight up. And wood doesn't like to do that. Bending wood in one direction is difficult, but doable, given time, vats of water, and the right clamps and forms. But bending and twisting wood in 2 directions like this is extremely difficult. Then, to do it in a way that those pieces of wood are strong and stable enough to provide the structural strength to a staircase, well, that's just incredible.
And of course, he did it alone with just basic hand tools.
Right. And in spite of it all, he made both stringers so precisely that they could serve as the inner and outer stringers on such a staircase. Well, that's where we can start wondering about the divine intervention.
Not only that, but he used no nails, screws, or glue. The pieces that he connected to make the stringers are connected only with wooden pegs.
It's just amazing. Another mystery is the wood used to make it. The wood is definitely some sort of spruce, but it is not a species native to the southwestern United States, and in fact, the exact species hasn't even been identified anywhere on Earth. Cue the Twilight Zone music.
So there are multiple mysteries surrounding this staircase. Who was the carpenter? Why did he arrive on the very day that they finished their novena to St. Joseph? What kind of wood is it, and where did he get it? And how did he build that amazing staircase by himself with such basic tools?
And add one more fun element, the staircase has exactly 33 stairs.
Jesus' age when he was crucified.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the construction. Now let's talk about the builder.
Well, the sisters had tried to find out who he was. They put ads in the paper. They asked around to anyone who might have sold him lumber or other supplies. But like I said before, no one had any idea. He hadn't bought anything from any of them. So, given the available evidence, the sisters came to believe that it really might have been St. Joseph or an angel sent by him.
Oh, kind of like Clarence.
Yes, angel second class, working to get his wings.
Yes, funny. Mm-hmm. But there's a possibility of a real human being who it might have been.
Right. Within the last 40 years, a couple of different historians have identified a man who may have been the builder. One bit of evidence cited is a record from 1881 that a man named Rocus had sold some wood to the sisters. The Rocus in question may well have been a man who lived in nearby Dog Canyon. He was François Jean Rocus, and he was apparently a member of a French society of highly skilled craftsmen and artisans called Les Compagnons. Rocus had come to Santa Fe in the 1870s, and contemporary sources do indicate that he had quite a collection of woodworking tools.
So Rocus may well have been the man. He may have caught wind of the sisters' play, and of his own volition and with his own money, he ordered the wood from somewhere. Then he showed up and built the staircase without ever revealing his name.
It's possible, but it doesn't prove that Rocus was the builder. The 1881 record could just as easily have referred to work the sisters hired Rocus to do on a school they had built that year.
And if it were Rocus, since he stayed in the area and the sisters had business dealings with him in 1881, you'd think they'd recognize the man who built the stairs. The bishop and some of the priests were French, but the majority of the population was still native, so another Frenchman would probably be pretty noticeable.
Yeah, I'd say so. But for the sake of argument, let's say it was Rocus. And let's say we can explain the physics that hold up the staircase. This still doesn't mean there's nothing miraculous to take note of here.
Right. Miracles don't always mean a truly spectacular, unnatural occurrence like the sun dancing at Fatima.
Right. I mean, what is a miracle at root? Miracles are direct interventions by God into the natural sphere. Miracles are phenomena that defy reason and perhaps the laws of nature to show God's glory. Miracles are meant to inspire or affirm faith. They can be spectacular, but they can also be more mundane.
In the situation of this staircase, we have the sisters praying a novena, and on the 9th day, an unknown carpenter shows up with simple tools and, on his own, builds a staircase that would challenge modern builders with modern technologies, and then he disappears.
Right. It is possible for a carpenter to show up. It is possible to build the staircase. It is possible for a man to do something without seeking payment or even recognition. But for all of these to come together in such a manner, and then you have the unanswered question of what kind of wood it really is, well, it just stretches the limits of terms like coincidence and chance to deny the possibility that God directly intervened, and thus it was miraculous.
After all, the sisters had called in an airstrike.
Absolutely they had. An interesting test of the stair's power to inspire awe happened in April of 2018. A convention of the Stair Builders and Manufacturers Association took place in Santa Fe. During one of the social periods, a few dozen stair builder professionals went into the chapel to examine and gape at the staircase. Many had their opinions on how it could have been done. Some said they could see French inspiration in its construction and design, but all were in awe and all agreed that it was a phenomenal achievement, especially for its day.
Some even went so far as to admit at least some level of divine intervention in its construction. We have another witness to the staircase's power to inspire awe. During our pilgrimage to Santa Fe, we met Camilla, a woman who had been a student at the Loretto School before it closed in 1968. She was in the choir and actually climbed up and down the staircase with her class.
Yes, it was in use right up until the school closed.
And Camilla told us that it was a real trip to go up and especially to go down it because it was so high up. She said a number of the sisters and students would actually go down on their rear ends to make it all the way down to the bottom in a seating position.
Yeah, they'd shimmy down. I
Right.
can't say I blame them. Yeah. Now, it does have a handrail nowadays, but that wasn't original. That was added about 10 years after the staircase was built. And there are some pictures of the staircase without the handrail. To tell the truth, it looks surreal, like it's just sort of floating in air, twisting up to the choir loft.
As we said, the Chapel of Our Lady of Light and the staircase were in constant use until 1968, when the Loretto School closed down. The other buildings of the campus were torn down, and the chapel was sold to be a museum and a space for weddings, which it continues to be today.
The owners have kept it up very respectfully. They pipe in Gregorian chant and sacred polyphony during the day when visitors are admitted. They have kept the high altar intact, even allowing pilgrimage groups like ours to have Mass there, which we did when Mary and Father Angelo Casimiro was our spiritual guide.
But not everyone who goes is Catholic or even Christian. For a long time, it has been one of the top tourist attractions in Santa Fe, still inspiring wonder and awe, drawing viewers' minds and hearts closer to the God who likely provided for the poor sisters in their time of need.
And isn't that one of the hallmarks of a genuine miracle, to inspire or affirm faith?
Yes. And we pray that it may do so for generations to come. So, if you're ever in Santa Fe, don't miss the miraculous staircase that may have been built by St. Joseph himself, but almost certainly was the result of some level of miraculous intervention. The Chapel of Our Lady of Light is just around the corner from the Cathedral Basilica of St. Francis. Both are marvelous reminders of the earliest days of the Catholic Diocese of Santa Fe, its first bishop, and the sisters from Kentucky, who brought their zeal for teaching, as well as their prayers. This has been American Catholic History. If you enjoy American Catholic History, please become a supporter. We've got great perks for supporters. Get information on how to become a supporter and the perks at americanCatholicHistory.org/support.
Also on our website, sign up for our newsletter, learn more about the Miraculous Loretto Staircase, see about our pilgrimages, and find other great stories from American Catholic history.
We also love the great reviews our listeners leave. Those and the 5-star ratings helps others find us. You can email us feedback, questions, tips for episode topics, or other comments at feedback@americanCatholicHistory.org. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/American Catholic History, on Instagram at ACH_podcast, or follow us on Twitter at ACH1513. I'm Noelle Heister-Crow.
And I'm Tom Crow.
Thank you once again for joining us on American Catholic History, made possible by listeners like you.